Well, hello everyone and welcome. We hope that you are having a fantastic day, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening where you are. We're thrilled that you're taking part of your time today to learn a little bit more about what it's like to be a woman leader in technology and product management. We know this is an exciting area for a lot of our current MBA students. Many folks are looking to go into roles like this after graduating with their MBA. And some of you today might just be exploring what this career could look like for you as you think about what your future goals look like. So I think today is going to be a fantastic conversation, and we're really looking forward to it. This event is a part of Forte's Conquer Your Career virtual series, which again, as a whole is just trying to give folks an opportunity to look at what it's like to be a woman with an MBA working in various fields. So obviously today is about technology and product management. So let's get started. So we are joined by, I know it looks like four, but we're actually joined by three amazing panelists today who I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. One of our speakers was not able to join us, so we will sadly miss her, but are excited to welcome her to future events. But I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what we're talking about today before our amazing panelists share a little bit more about their background and experiences. Product managers, if you aren't aware, they play a really important role in any organization. They collaborate across business functions to really develop and design new products. This role can be especially important within the technology industry, where, as we know, innovation is really key and drives a lot of decision making. Our panelists today will share their experiences and discuss the knowledge, skills, and abilities that can help launch someone into these career paths. So let's get started. Alrighty, so first I'd like to introduce you to Kelly Chen. Kelly graduated with an MBA from the Wharton School and is currently a senior product manager at Adobe. Kelly, we'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. Could you tell us more about your career experiences in product management?
Yes, of course. Well, hello everyone. My name is Kelly. I grew up in Los Angeles, which is where I'm currently based as well. I went to undergrad at UCLA and started in and I majored in psychology. When I started my career right out of college, it was always product adjacent, but not always in product. So I started my career in user research at Disney, and that's where I first got exposure into product management by doing the research and then advising them on like what they should do, use this insight to build into the product. And then after that, I was at Pinterest on their strategy and ops role. Have always been really interested in product management, but ultimately decided to get my MBA to help pivot into product management. So during my MBA career, I interned at Snap on their as a PM on their monetization team, and then afterward, I got a job at Adobe, which is where I'm currently based.
Thanks, Kelly. I can't wait to hear more about all those different great organizations that you work for and a little bit more about what it's like a day in your life as well. So thank you for that. And I'm excited to also introduce you all to Shreya Misra. Shreya is a senior advisor for product management at Dell. She also graduated with an MBA from the University of Virginia. Shreya, welcome. Could you tell us more about your career as well?
Of course. Thank you so much, Libby. And hi, everyone. So I'm Shreya Mishra, and I'm actually, you could call me a senior product manager, but that's just my title. So I work with Dell as a product manager, and currently my role is where I go ahead and offer product management services to support offers. I currently manage a portfolio of offers that generate about $10 million in annual recurring revenue, which is quite something. But I do tend to serve both customers and consumer segments. And my introduction is going to go pretty much in a reverse chronological order. So that's that. I am actually working also on Dell's AI PC support strategy, as well as also leading a couple of Dell telemetry manager programs, which actually have a potential to, again, get a lot in revenue. But before joining Dell, where I've been here now for about 3 years, I did get my MBA at UVA Dowden School of Business, class of 2023. And I concentrated on strategy, technology, where I always had my heart at, right? And I also led the Dowden Tech Club as a VP of product. Again, tying all together and my words colliding. Um, Before my MBA, I actually was in India and I was working with various tech consulting companies. I grew myself as a system engineer to a lead tech consultant. And all this while, I was supporting businesses build their e-commerce website and scale it internationally too. Um, Now, what really has personally shaped my resume has been my family. I do come from an Orthodox Indian family, and if you guys are there resonating with this, I would insist you to pursue your ambitions. And I think Forte is a great, step where you can actually talk to like-minded people and make your way into something that's really important. Um, so here I am building and shaping products. I'm also known for doing something totally out of the blue, have a purpose and be adventurous at the same time. Fun fact is, I have traveled with my two dogs and my husband cross country thrice and cross continent once. So you can remember me by someone who loves animals, who volunteers at things like Chicago Paws, and just loves to push their boundaries. That's about me.
Shreya, I love that you traveled with your dogs. I'm such a dog lover. My dog is in the other room, so I was
I
very
know a
happy
lot of
to hear
people
that.
resonate.
Chicago Paws is a great organization too. Well, thank you, Shreya. Very pleased that you're here today. And then last but certainly not least, I'm pleased to introduce you to Erin Radler. Erin completed her MBA from Carnegie Mellon University Tepper School of Business and now works as the principal product manager for tech at Amazon. Erin, welcome. Please tell us a little bit more about your journey. We're excited to get to know you.
Thanks, Libby. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'll share off the top. I'm also a dog lover. I have an 8-pound Pomeranian named Spike, who's just the cutest little thing. He comes to the office with me pretty regularly and wins hearts and minds everywhere. So definitely support the traveling with the pups. Yeah, so I've been at Amazon for, I guess, almost 10 years now. I joined Amazon originally out of my MBA and also interned there as well as a product manager. I spent most of my career in product management. As Libby mentioned, did my MBA at Carnegie Mellon and did my undergraduate studies at Northwestern University, also outside of Chicago. So spent a lot of time in Chicago as well. There, I studied a program called Manufacturing and Design Engineering, which was an interdisciplinary program at the Siegel Design Institute there, focusing on mechanical and industrial engineering and industrial design. So I was really interested in product management, even in my undergraduate studies, and also did a certificate in integrated marketing communications from Medill there. I kind of found my way into product management through kind of trial and error. I originally wanted to study chemical engineering. I grew up in Midland, Michigan, which is where Dow Chemicals headquartered. So I thought I really wanted to do biomedical research and completely chose a different path once I started doing my internships in customer research, market research, I should say specifically, in advertising, as well as doing user research and project management at a healthcare company, as well as a chemicals company while in college. I started my early career in software consulting. I worked at Accenture for a number of years, really kind of getting my core foundational experience in what it meant to be a business analyst, a program manager, and a product manager before transitioning into a startup. And then ultimately moving to a mid-sized software company before deciding to pursue my MBA. As I mentioned, I interned at Amazon during my MBA, but I also focused on doing tech strategy and product management and entrepreneurship while in business school, and really dove into those tracks and had a side project with one of my classmates while I was there as well, working at something completely different, which was a clothing company for new moms going back to the workplace, which is a really interesting project to work on for a couple years that I was there. Pittsburgh is a phenomenal town for anyone still looking at schools. I cannot endorse Carnegie Mellon enough. I had really great experience there and really felt like it blended the right balance of art and science and technology across the entire campus while you were there. Since I've been at Amazon, as I mentioned, I've been here for about 10 years. I've also explored a couple of different avenues since I've been here. When I first interned, I was in the Kindle education group. I came back full-time in AWS, working on S3, doing large-scale private pricing agreements for cloud storage. And then I've been actually in the Alexa and devices organization for about the past 9 years, working within our smart home business, being a lead device product manager for the Echo Hub, which we launched in early 2024, owning both hardware and software. And then most recently, I'm one of our lead product managers for Alexa identity and personalization. So had a wide variety of different product areas that I've worked on, but have pretty consistently been focused on product management for most of my career and couldn't endorse it enough. It's so much fun. I enjoy coming to work every single day with a new challenge. So really looking forward to the discussion today and sharing those experiences with you all.
Thanks, Erin. I love how you can find that like product management interest all the way back to your undergraduate experience too. I think that's so special. And excited to hear more about all of your experiences. So with that, we're going to dive into our panel questions for the day. So I'd love to start with our first question and have that go to Kelly. So Kelly, could you tell me more about a typical day for you, given the balance between kind of strategy and execution? How does that shake out? And how do you ensure that your day-to-day actions are really staying aligned with what's tasked with you from an organizational objective perspective?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the fun things about product management is that it really varies by day. But usually there is some kind of like weekly or daily stand up, usually just 15 minutes, where you just check in with your team, see how things are going. Then the rest of the day, it can be really high level to your point about like strategy, it can be giving exact updates, it can be planning our roadmap and our releases and chatting about go to market strategy. And there can also be some sessions where it's like really hands on and going really nitty gritty into if there's a bug, you need to like debug it. You need to go into like the code or how it's generated to really figure out like what is giving this error. Or sometimes as the product manager, you do a lot of these annoying tedious tasks that like to just enable your like dev team. So recently I was working on this like mapping table, and I was really on like the Excel like mapping like what like this product SKU should mean, and if this is like showing up, this needs to be like this. So just mapping out all this nitty gritty like details and logic to ensure things work. um so it really varies by day, but sometimes really high level and sometimes like very detailed into the weeds is what I would say. As for the second part of your question for ensuring for prioritization, it's usually by like urgency and impact. Every now and then I would do like a reflective with my manager and say, hey, am I still spending my time on on the areas that would have the most impact? We do OKR. So sometimes we'll say, instead of talking about which feature we should do, sometimes it's more like, what is the objective we're trying to achieve? And is this more important than this other objective? I also like to do we use this framework called start, stop, and continue with the Scrum team, where to ensure we're working more efficiently. What are some of the things we should start doing, stop doing, and continue doing? And that's been really helpful to ensure that as things change, we're staying nimble and we're really having that short feedback loop to inform our future.
I think you described that so perfectly about how you're kind of you are being nimble and kind of mixing all these different components, and every day is going to look different, and I'm sure that makes it a really fun kind of way to go to work every day. It's like, oh, I wonder how this day is going to shake out and how we're going to use our time. So thank you for that great overview, Kelly. So we've talked about what it's like day in the life. Let's talk a little bit more about how to be a successful leader. So for that question, we're going to go to Erin. Erin, what skills do you need to be a successful leader in technology or product management? What approaches have allowed you to earn trust and drive organizational impact in your roles? We'd love to hear more.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with the skills first. I can't emphasize this enough. I think the biggest thing is communication, both being able to be an effective verbal and written communicator, but also having really strong listening skills. I think the most important role that like a product manager has within any organization, and I'll give the caveat that product management is a little bit different at every single company and every single product area that you work on. So it really is going to be a little bit industry and company specific. But communication and being able to bridge all of these different stakeholder groups that have their own skill sets and their own objectives and goals, as Kelly was mentioning, and being able to kind of thread all of their interests and needs together is really, really critical for the job. On top of that, I'll say, as you grow in that career, the importance of time management and ruthless prioritization are also really, really critical. So when you typically will start, you'll be a product manager for maybe like a core feature or a set of features and owning a whole product space, and that collectively grows over time. So like within my experience at Amazon, when I first moved over into the Alexa group, I worked specifically on a program within the smart home team. And then over time, I grew that and led a device program, which spanned dozens to hundreds of hardware and operational and software capabilities, and really being the single threaded leader for all of those groups coming together. And now I lead a horizontal group, which is threading across everything within Alexa. And the biggest challenge I faced in developing that is being able to identify where to focus your time and what's the most pressing needs on a weekly and a monthly basis, and being able to communicate that to people to set proper expectations around what you're tackling first, what can come later, and getting alignment on that with your leadership. So I think those are the biggest kind of general skills I would say. And then within any kind of business you go into, obviously you need to have a really strong understanding of your industry, the latest tech trends there, and really being able to drive continuous education for yourself to stay on top of anything that could benefit your product area, and staying nimble both from understanding what the customer needs and also understanding what's happening within your competitive space. I've also understood, just from a general engineering standpoint, that systems design is critical. And if you can understand that logic of how all these different disparate systems fit together, you can apply that mental model into any industry or any product space. And so I think that is one core thing, whether you're approaching it from an operations design or a tech systems design, that same skill set is generally applicable. From an approaches standpoint, I would say the biggest thing I've had for helping me to earn trust with other partners is building trust through empowering others. So as I mentioned, scaling yourself and time management are really critical. It's when you're starting out, sometimes people often feel like they have to do everything to stay in control and make those key decisions. But the reality of the fact is that you can't own every single task and you can't own every single decision. And so being able to not only delegate, but also empower other people to feel like they're owners of their own space and their own capabilities is really critical in establishing those relationships, both for helping you to scale yourself and supporting other people's careers. And that can come back tenfold later on as everyone kind of scales throughout their career in a company or in other places. One of the best things I've had at Amazon is just building out a network of people in different businesses now across AWS and retail and operations. And it really helps you as you're, 5-10 years out in your career, looking for what to do next, having those people that you've established those early trust relationships with to find that next opportunity. So I think those are the key things I would focus on.
No, that was exceptionally comprehensive. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate you mentioning, like, you can't own every single task and you can't own every single decision. I hope people take that to heart, because as a recovering perfectionist, as I call it, that really spoke to me. So
it's a learning journey for everybody on that front.
Right, exactly. And I was hoping to actually ask you a follow-up question, if that's okay with you. You really honed in on the time management perspective, and you were talking about how you really work to make sure that you understand what is, needed from a weekly and monthly basis, and then setting expectations appropriately. Do you have any tips for folks here today who are trying to get into that kind of mindset as they're in their MBA? Obviously, everyone in their MBA is getting kind of a crash course in that time management right now. But from your experiences, before and after, what exactly do you do to make sure, like, I've got this, I've got a sense of what I need to be doing, and I'm communicating that appropriately? Any tips for the folks here today?
So I think maybe kind of two tactical things I would say is, for myself, I always try to plan my weekly view and my monthly view at least a week in advance or a month in advance, so I know what's coming and what are my big rocks that are coming up. So I have like a monthly grid of like, what's my top priorities for November or December and January. And you can use that kind of like an optimization or prioritization model for yourself. Like, if it's not in these top 3 or 4 things, I'm okay to say no to it and make sure everyone's on the same page with that. And then on a granular level, like, I try to make sure that I have all of my core meetings locked in on my schedule, so I'm not scrambling to adjust things at the last minute. And a part of that as well is having time blocks on your calendar for both yourself. So like, this is going to sound a little silly, but like blocking off time for lunch, blocking off time for coffee chats with mentors or key stakeholders or friends that you want to make sure you're prioritizing that time. And then also making sure that if you have a big deliverable or project coming up, that you carve out time for you to do that work. Because the more you scale and you own more in your product space, the more that is just going to get filled up with meetings. So there's always somebody who needs something from you, who's always going to say, can I just put 30 minutes on your calendar? And you want to be friendly and say yes. But sometimes the answer has to be, no, I'm busy this week. Come back in 2 weeks. I just don't have time for this right now. And having that clear prioritization framework and that blocks of time pre-scheduled really helps to make those decisions clear for both yourself and other people. So they know how far in advance they have to try to engage with you to be able to set your time. I think those are the two biggest things that have helped me, but open to others on the call as well if you have other things that have helped for you.
Thank you, Erin. That was super helpful, and I know folks are taking a lot of notes. So thank you for kind of really explaining how to be a successful leader in tech and product management. We appreciate it. All right, so our next question, we're actually going to go to Shreya for this. So Shreya, what experiences, projects, classes, or skills should MBA students prioritize during business school? And then how did you leverage your own MBA journey to position yourself for success in tech or product management roles? And what would you advise attendees to do differently?
Of course. Sure. So I think my one-liner to that, big question is I would ask the people in this audience to actually set themselves up for success, right? It really depends on what their current level is to what their ambitions and goals are in order to figure those essential skills and classes that they need to take during their MBA, right? So again, I would ask the audience people to actually reflect on what their true intention is, where they want to eventually be. Like even in product management, there are just so many facets and faces to it. You can be a technical product manager. You can actually be a project manager. You can actually be somebody who's awesome at strategy and ops, right? You can be a product manager in that respect. You can be a product marketing manager when it comes to tech, right? So again, there are so many flavors. I think that assessment of where you actually want to be and what you're good at is so crucial in order for you to see where my gaps are. So the next step is once you've identified those gaps, you know that are the classes that you want to take. So for me, as for my example, so I went to Darden School of Business. Darden is such a case heavy school. It's so much difficult to get time in the first 3 quarters, but the rest of the quarters, the rest 5 quarters that you have in your MBA journey is all for you to pick and choose classes, right? So I knew that I came from a technical background. So I did have my technical understanding and all those things set in stone, but I didn't have much aptitude to actually storytell, right? So I did take storytelling classes and data visualization classes. Like I got my MBA skills. I know financials, I know pricing, I know how to model things up. But when I talk to leadership, I actually need to storytell my idea well, right? For them to be able to, digest it and act on it, right? So I think, again, coming and figuring out where you're good at, what your weaknesses are, and then, as even Erin mentioned, like leveraging those connections, communicating with them helps you develop those skill sets for the longer game, right? So that'll be my go-to point. Introspect, figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are, and work on your weaknesses. Again, going back to my example where I did mention like things like project management, like if you're super interested in project management, take up for classes which are good in the sense negotiations. It's an awesome class to go take. You need to be able to communicate with your stakeholders, negotiate with them, again, with competing timelines, just like Erin was mentioning too, right? So you need to build those skill sets and leverage those once you're actually in the business world, in the corporate world. And these are like everyday struggles for us too as product managers. We need to negotiate with our stakeholders and say no, like Erin said, like we need to say no to, hey, we can't get this done in this sprint. Let's focus on the next. But you need to tailor it in a way that's, taken nicely rather than disrespectfully. So I think that's important. So yeah.
Thank you, Shreya. I really appreciate all that you shared, and of course, like the reflecting on your own experiences before going into the MBA and before even starting the application process is so key. So I'm glad that you mentioned that too. Our next question will go back to Kelly for this. Kelly, could you describe the recruitment process in technology or product management? This is a long question. What strategies or tactics did you use to prepare for MBA level interviews? And then what recommendations do you have for folks who want to stand out from the crowd during the recruitment process?
Of course. So I give you guys a high level overview of the process. So it's usually multiple rounds. You start with a phone screen, then the second round's usually with your hiring manager, either like behavioral or maybe a short case. Then after that, there may be a short like take-home assignment, but then there's always some kind of panel aspect, and it really varies by company. So I know like Google, for example, and Amazon, like some companies, they like maybe Erin can speak to this as well. They ask like for principles, like Amazon principles. So definitely do your research on like those specific companies that you're interviewing for and understand what format they are in. But there's usually the things that they're testing for is like your product sense. So this is going to come through as a live case, asking you, questions like, okay, how would you improve this product? Like, why would you build this? And then there will be some other questions that are more geared towards like these other skill sets that they want to test, like such as like strategy. Can you think about like can you use like data points to inform like strategy? How would you manage your cross-functional stakeholders? So there can be a lot of different types of questions, but those are the general skill sets that they're trying to test in those interviews. As for tips for prepping, if you haven't done a lot of live cases before, definitely try to like understand how those are structured. For me, I practice with other peers that also go for product roles or tech roles. I use Exponent. They have a lot of live cases, and you can use their frameworks, and that was really helpful for me as well. And just a lot of practice on delivery, making sure that you're able to summarize and do a live case, because that can be really stressful sometimes in a succinct manner. So I even prep with some of my consulting friends to get their feedback on other like frameworks I can use as it relates to like strategy, as it relates to product monetization and whatnot. As for tips for standing out, I think what Shreya said mentioned earlier about really doing your reflective, what your strengths are, it's important so you know what value you bring to the table, right? So you what I find is that a lot of this interviewers sometimes they're lazy. They might not even have looked through your resume. So it's really up to you to connect the dots for them as to like this is what I am experiencing, and sometimes that may not be evident through your specific role titles. Maybe you have product management experience, but it's just not obvious. So you need to connect the dots for them. So for me, I said I am from my role at Disney, which was very focused on user research. I know user empathy. So that's something that I can bring into a product management role. So I would suggest that you do that for them as well, know exactly what you bring and how it helps their specific ways. And another thing that I've done is always come with a POV. Research your product, come up with suggestions. And I think for the Q&A section at the end, when the interviewer asks you, do you have any questions for me? That's also an opportunity for you to shine and be like, hey, I was actually looking at this product and found this really interesting that you guys decided to do this. Have you considered XYZ? To really show that you can like be plugged in and like think about their product and start contributing. So I think that's also another area where you can like shine and show how you really think. And lastly, I'll just end with I know it's a tough market out there for PMs, especially for those who are career switching. So also, if there are other adjacent roles, like Shia mentioned, like a project management or even like product strategy, like that can be a good stepping stone. I think usually if you're switching roles and industry, it can be really hard rather than if you're just switching one of those. So if you did product before, but not in tech, but you just want to pivot to tech, that might be easier pivot. Or if you work in tech but you just want to switch roles, that could also be an easier pivot. So just really understand like where you are, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and then thinking more so as like not a career as a single point, but more like steps along the way. And I think that could open up yourself up to other opportunities if you really see yourself wanting to build a career in tech.
Thank you, Kelly. That makes a lot of sense. And I definitely appreciate how you mentioned, think about that Q&A component of the interview even more strategically than before, and, show ways that your ideas can contribute in that way. I think that that's a really smart thing to do. So thank you for that. Our next question will go to Shreya. So, Shreya, could you think back to your first role after graduating from business school? How did you tackle the initial learning curves, and what resources did you use to get up to speed quickly?
Sure. So the good thing is I did intern with Dell. I did get my full-time offer back from Dell. And luckily, I got to work on the same project, at least to begin with, that I actually interned on and gave a recommendation to the senior executives. So they were like, hey, just push it out. So, but anyway, that was good. So far, so good. But very soon enough, I was handed on additional responsibilities. Hey, like probably she spent her good time on doing the internship. She knows that. Let's task her more. So I did, and I had to lead like a DTM cloud strategy, and we had to onboard 15 different teams onto that platform in a very short time. And all this to save us billions of dollars in Azure cost. Well, so that's the first learning curve right there. You don't know much about the business. You probably have your MBA skills in your back pocket and then maybe your tech skills or whatever skills you have. But then how do you apply them? So that's the very first, curve that you face. And my suggestion would be, and actually it worked out well for me, even though I was remote, is I set up one-on-ones with my stakeholders with the representatives from all those 15 different teams. I managed to get 20 minutes on the calendar just to get to know what their project looks like. Why are they trying to onboard onto this, on this data lake? And then also to build those working relationships, which you will learn as a product manager is so very important. Because even I believe Erin did mention, these are the people who are going to advocate for you in the longer run. So you need to build those relationships with people um, who are going to make you successful in your journey, right? Because again, your strengths, but you don't know how businesses work. And these, like Amazon has been such an old business. Adobe has been pretty out there too. 40 years of Dell, like these businesses have lasted decades. And you're, so early on your career. So the initial first 60 days is where I say, dig into all the content that's there, probably on a SharePoint. Probably your organization has access to Copilot, which I absolutely love now. And you can just query it, get all that information, enrich your brain. Hey, this is all I know, but this is all I don't know. So set those one-on-ones, and that's how you will be up at the bell curve rather than being stuck somewhere there. And these will be the people who are going to advocate for you because they are actually learning that you are curious about this business. You bring in your set of values, and you are okay to accept, hey, this is what I don't know, but hey, I'm here to learn. So I think that's really important, and that's how you'll set yourself up to success. That's that.
Thank you, Shreya. That makes a lot of sense. And I love that you started networking right away by putting those.
I was remote, so I was scared.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And I love that you did it anyway. You were like, let's chat. I want to learn more about this part of the business. That's wonderful. Thank you. So then our last official question, I'm going to turn over to Erin. Erin, how can project managers build credibility and visibility so that they're considered for strategic or high impact projects? How can product managers make sure they're getting the right lessons from these experiences?
Sure. So I'll take the first question, or the first part first. So the building credibility and visibility within your role. So I think part of it is related to the nature of the work that you're doing, and part of it is also putting yourself in opportunities and spaces where you're going to make those connections and have broader opportunities to meet people outside of your direct project area. So from like a skill set perspective, I would say like you can impress upon people being really detail oriented, being proactive and looking around corners and anticipating needs for the projects and products that you're working on. This shows the people that you are thinking critically about each area and going beyond just trying to do the specific thing that was requested of you and making sure that you're being thorough and comprehensive in the work. And I think that really helps people to impress upon them your dedication to the space, as well as your ability to think ahead of the current task that you're on. I say this also, like being proactive and trying to accomplish things in advance can be a double-edged sword. Like if you try to get too far out, you may make decisions that people aren't agreeing with. And so it's harkening back to that communication and bringing people along in the process is also really important. But I think, one of the best project managers I've ever worked with was somebody who I joke internally, that like, I love working with him because like 80% of the things that we needed to get done, he already figured out what the problem was, how to solve it. He already talked to all of the teams. He already queued up everything he needed to do. And he would just come to me with, okay, I need you to make this one decision. What is it? Yes or no? And it made my life so much easier because he did all of the thinking already and we were on the same page and we could execute and move really, really quickly, because the critical things that, as you scale in your career, product managers need to have high judgment in decision-making in the product areas that you own, but you don't need to be in every single meeting with every single person. And so finding that relationship, either on the product or project side, is, I think, really critical to establishing that, and being someone like, I advocate for him in every career. I helped him get promoted. I put him on other projects. Like, that stuff really helps you to put forth and build those connections. I would say the other part is putting yourself in spaces where you're getting that visibility. So if you are owning a product or a project and you have leadership forums for, like, we have weekly launch readiness reviews, we have monthly and senior program reviews, representing your space, both from like providing the written input, speaking up when leadership asks questions, helps you to present yourself as knowledgeable, but also make sure that people know who you are and knowing that you're owning your space. If you feel like your leadership is trying to either like take credit for the work that you're doing, or is fielding those questions when you feel like you're ready and prepared to do it, like, advocate for yourself and say, hey, I know what I'm talking about. Let me speak up in these meetings. Part of what helped me progress in my career at Amazon is being known as somebody that you could put in front of an SVP and being able to represent my stuff and being able to be succinct and accurate and have high quality responses. And they could trust putting me in those forums, which led to new opportunities where it was a high visibility or high pressure product area. I mentioned earlier, I was the lead product manager for a device program. What actually got me that role was being someone that they could put in front of leadership reviews, because when you're leading a device program, you're frequently in front of VPs on a weekly basis. But also being a part of, we had a product management guild within our smart home team. And a part of that was mentoring other product managers. It was hosting product review sessions, doing lunch and learns, helping to develop the product management community within our organization. And being a part of that, I met a lot of different people who were working on different areas within our business and helped them to grow in their own careers, but they also got to know me, my career interests, what my background was. And so I got that role being a device product manager because somebody knew who I was already, knew I had the capacity to do that role, and knew I had a career interest in going to that space. And so the opportunity actually came to me. I didn't have to go seek it out. And so I think, like, when you're looking for finding the right stepping stones in your career, it's a combination of timing and luck and skill and readiness, and also being the right time in your life for taking that next step. But you have to get all those building blocks in place in order for those things to line up. And so I think it's the balance of the skill and the visibility and the readiness. And I think the second part of the question was around making sure you're getting the right lessons from these experiences. As we mentioned, like, having open communication with your stakeholders is really, really critical. I think getting 360 feedback on a regular basis. I think Kelly mentioned this earlier when you're talking about like reflections. It's on the product, but it's also on your own performance, is really helpful for understanding, like, are the actions you're taking being perceived as the right actions? And is your internal view of how you're operating the same as other people's perceptions? And they can see things that you may be blind to, or maybe you haven't observed that you've been doing. And so I think that's a good way of calibrating like the work that you're doing and putting your best foot forward in your career, and also making sure you're taking the right lessons from how other people are perceiving the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Erin. That was a great and super helpful response. So thank you very much for sharing all your perspectives and experiences. And I love seeing how these different roles kind of came your way and how you stood out from the crowd. So I know our students and attendees here learned a lot from you too. So that's the end of our official panel questions. So I'm hoping we can do maybe one question, just given the time. But we have many. This is a very engaged group. They have a lot of great questions. I'm sad we can't get to all of them, but one that I am really interested in from, whomever would like to answer, it can be all three of you, it can be one. So this individual is wondering, given kind of the current landscape of things, what skills are you focusing on and like to upskill? What's kind of on your next, your horizon for, I really want to be focusing on this area or this skill or this technique. Would love to hear from you all.
Maybe I can take that a little bit because I'm like always curious to know what's going on and
Yeah,
what's.
sounds good.
So Dell, like it's super scaling up in the AI PC strategy, and AI is the new buzzword, AI and agentic both, honestly. And I know we've not touched much about it, but all Adobe, Amazon, Dell are all doing something AI or agentic. So I think that's one of the key skills you need to develop. You probably don't need to learn how to code and build an agentic, an LLM or whatever, but then you need to know what it entails, how to prompt engineer a chat GPT properly, and all those things. So my suggestion would be look at courses which give you a good insight into how AI is looking, what are the new tools out there that you as a product manager could go leverage. Think of things such as agentic courses that you can probably take, like the free courses Google has or anything. And then I personally go to Lenny's podcast. That could be a really nice resource for you to go and look at whatever latest is happening in product management space. And you get to hear from a lot of really good speakers. So that's my take.
Thank you, Shreya. Kelly or Aaron, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would echo that as well. Like AI, anything we can do from an automation standpoint is where I'm spending a lot of time trying to brainstorm ways we can integrate this technology. I know someone else also had a question about what do I do from the technical side of things, given that I study psychology. So for me, I also like to read up on like Lenny's podcast or even like system designs to make sure that for the product area that I'm touching, we do a lot of like APIs, for example, that I know like how it works. But if I get put on a new project and it is an area that I don't have as much expertise on, that's like where I'll try to read up more about, hey, like how, for example, like our LLM structure, how should we structure our data to make this more ingestible for this AI agent that we want to help build. So, like, anytime there is a new area, I definitely need to spend a little bit more time to learn about it, or even just setting up some time with experts and trying to just ask them the dumb questions, not in a broad setting, but people that you trust and be like, hey, I don't really understand how this works. Can I just grab time to like chat with you about how this works? Like, what are some of the system limitations? That has been really helpful for me.
Thank you, Kelly. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that, you're also like, let me get to the subject matter experts and ask them a couple of questions when they have time.
Right.
Yeah, Aaron, did you want to add anything? Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Sure. I mean, I know we're at time, so I'll just give it really brief. I would say like, yeah, AI is definitely the buzzword of trying to figure out how it gets better integrated to your product space. I work in Alexa. I'm very familiar with all of that going on. So I won't speak on that directly. I think the other part, that we've been focusing on is how you better integrate like AI tools to improve your productivity as a product manager. And so we've been working through, tools that help you make it easier for product scoping or rapid prototyping. One of my PM peers likes to call it demos before memos. So try to build something and spec it out and really figure out what the customer experience is going to be before you go debate the nitty-gritty details of it, to really gut check yourself on, is this the right customer experience that we're trying to build? And there's a lot of those tools available. I'd say some of them are better than others. And a lot of times it leads to you needing to edit or curate the outputs that you're getting from those tools. And so I would say, while we still are, as an industry, are moving towards, how can you better understand AI in your product space and in tools to improve productivity, you still need to understand the fundamentals of what it means to be a product manager, to manage product development or product marketing, whichever space you go into, to be able to understand how to edit and curate the outputs and the inputs into the systems that you're working with. Ultimately, product managers still have to apply high judgment in what they're doing. And unless you understand the core fundamentals, no AI tool is going to teach you that. So it may help accelerate your education, but you still need to balance it with both. So I think that would be my kind of parting comment.
Absolutely. It makes complete sense. Well, I just want to thank all of you for being here today and for sharing your experiences and your insights. Again, I know tech and product management is a really exciting space for our MBA students and our early career folks that are on the session today. So thank you so much for sharing your time and fitting us into your schedule, because I know you're very busy. I also want to just let everyone know, in case you are interested, this Conquer Your Career series is about all different areas of business. And tomorrow we're actually having a session on finance interviews. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about what a finance interview entails and hear from some current MBA students at some of our partner or our member schools, and kind of hear about their experiences and how they were successful in their MBA internship search, feel free to join us. Registration is still open. But other than that, we are at time, and I just wanted to thank you so much again for spending time with us today. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did, and we'll speak with you all really soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.